Alright, good afternoon. Today we got another video for you guys. Pretty much it's a 2-in-1 thing. We're going to be replacing a serpentine belt, and we're going to replace the alternator on the car. So I mean, they pretty much go hand in hand, so I'm just going to jump straight into it, and my buddy Jake is going to go ahead and record and do the commentary.
Alright guys, so as you can tell, this is a 99 Mustang. Let me step back for a second. It is a 99 Mustang New Edge. Alternator is right here, as you can tell, right above the power steering pump. And then what the serpentine belt is right here, where you see this 18 millimeter socket on this part of the pulley. That is the serpentine belt. So he's gonna go ahead and take off the serpentine belt. We're gonna release the tension on the serpentine belt. That way we can get the tension pulley off, which is this one right here. So if you notice this big wrench or big ratchet you see right here, we're gonna pull towards us, and it'll loosen tension on the belt. As far as that, then you slowly release it back, and there you go. You have the belt off of, or the tension off of the belt and the belt off of the pulleys. Make sure you do remember how your belt goes, because that is the way it's supposed to go. And if you do decide to switch that around, you may have extra room, or you know, too much space from where the belt meets the other pulleys. So there's that. Now he's gonna take off the the bolts on the alternator. As you can tell, there's one at the bottom, which is I
got a 15
millimeter. I believe the top bolt is a different size, and I believe that is a 13 millimeter.
Yeah.
May have to give it a little muscle, depending on how well it's bolted in there.
Oh, drop one. I'll get in a minute.
You may have to wiggle the alternator back and forth to try and get the rest of that bolt out. Remember to remove your either ground or positive wire. That way you don't have sparks come from any tools you're using or accidentally place on the battery or anything like that. But, you know, just a heads up. It's, you know, I wouldn't say it's important, but unless you want to short out your car with everything else that it's got, you know, it'd be it'd be a great idea to just unhook the negative or the positive and then continue work with what you're doing, because there is a positive wire that is in the back of the alternator that you're going to have to get loose in order for you to get the alternator completely out. And I believe here's one plug right here. There's a secondary plug, and I believe this bolt back here that holds the ground, not the ground, sorry, the positive to battery is a 13 millimeter, if I'm correct. Be very careful when taking off this ground wire, because it may be clipped in and it may not. So just get a flathead screwdriver and try to wiggle that clip out without damaging anything. Move the alternator. Yeah, there it is. Hold on. As you can tell, this clip goes in right here. This is the ground wire for the alternator. It goes in like that. Now this bolt right here, I believe on my 2001 Chevy Malibu, it was a 13 millimeter. However, every alternator is different. Again, this is a 99 Mustang, so the bolt might be smaller and it might be bigger. Depending on the threads and the bolt, the alternator, whatever the case may be. For this Mustang, it is a 11 millimeter. So, you know, just to keep that in mind. And then once you do that, you know, you're just gonna pop that off, and if you want to pick up the alternator. And then your whole alternator comes out. And as you can tell, that's the alternator. If you have any problems as to getting it out, as you can tell, this is where one bolt goes, and this is the thread for the other one. If the bolt is just sitting there spinning, then you might have messed up the threads in this part or in this part of the alternator, the top piece. As you can tell, there's a bottom piece and there's a top piece for the 99 Mustang. There's only 2 bolts that hold in this alternator, okay? So if the bolt's just sitting there spinning and you're not getting, it's not coming out at all, you either stripped, depending on which bolt it is, you either strip the top bolt or you strip the bottom bolt. So there's that. And to put it back in, it is the exact same process. The exact same thing you did forward and reverse. So make sure your plugs are hooked up. Make sure all your cords are connected where they originally came off of. Make sure you don't over tighten your bolts and you torque your bolts to specifications. Again, every make and model is different, so that's a main reason why I say that. All right, so once you get your alternator back in, just tighten your bolts back down. Make sure all your plugs are secure and where they need to be. You're gonna see his hand moving around a whole lot because he's tightening this bolt. Now don't tighten them right away, because remember, you still got a secondary bolt you got to get in. So just barely tighten it to where it's kind of snug up against the frame or the bracket, and then work on the other bolt. Make sure you're actually grabbing thread from the bracket that holds the alternator, because if you don't, then you may create threads in the alternator itself, and you may think you have it tight and it's not tight because it's grabbing threads on the alternator versus the bracket. And then once you tighten that bottom bracket, you're gonna see how the gap appeared up top. That's because, it's sitting where it's supposed to sit. So now he's got to tighten top.
Make sure they catch you right there. I got it. Just gotta make a head shape.
Alright, so around crankshaft, around power steering, alternator, through the idler, around compressor, through the tension pulley, comes back around the water pump, and back down to the crankshaft.
Alright, so guys, go ahead and leave a thumbs up, go ahead and subscribe. Thank you for viewing. Alright, peace.